Hi there, thanks for joining me today. My name's Catherine. I have a flip through today of a journal I recently completed that I made from a book that was published in 1880. So this book is 142 years old. The author is Thomas Babington Macaulay, and he apparently had a series of books called Miscellaneous Works, and this is Miscellaneous Works 3. So, and that's the original label that was on the spine. I was able to keep the book all in one piece. So this is the original label that was on it. I did go over it with some what's the name of it? Glossy accents, and I added the brads just to give it a little detail. I think that makes it look nice. And because it had a plain cover, I did one thing that I really enjoy doing, and that is I double matted. This is a copy of Da Vinci's The Lady with the Ermine. And some experts say that this is actually his masterpiece over Mona Lisa or any of his other paintings. Not that he did that many. I've added a book plate to it, and for the time being I have titled it Miscellaneous Works, but this comes out and you could flip it over and put your own title in there as you wish. So this book, just to get down to the nitty-gritty, I have refurbished the spine so it's strong again. I've done a hidden hollow back spine in here, and there are 11 signatures, and there are 258 pages approximately, the last count I did, of varying sizes. So even the little pages, I still count as a page. If you can do a little bit of writing on it, I count it as a page. So let's take a look inside, and hopefully I'll remember all the little details that I want to share with you without taking up too much of your time. For the end papers on front and back, I've used 1930s wallpaper that I recently received as a gift from a friend. And to those of you who have sent me happy mail, if you see various things in here that you have sent to me, please know that you have my greatest of gratitude. Now here on the front page, I like when I can save the page that has the date of publication, and there it says 1880, and it lists the title, Miscellaneous Works of Lord Macaulay, and it was edited by his sister. There were 5 volumes, and this is volume 3. I also have volumes 1 and 2, so I'll be doing those at some point. These are fussy cuts that I did from an old 1888 book called The Girl's Own Annual. And same with this little bird flying in the sky. And I fussy cut around them. I thought they made it look rather interesting. And I ran him off the edge of the page because, as you're going to see, there are a whole array of very interesting tags and bits and bobs sticking out the sides here of this book. Now, I was able to do it without making a gator mouth, and so for that reason, that's a good thing, because I wouldn't be able to wrap a ribbon around it because of these tags and tabs and fun things. But if you're filling this up and you find that you do end up with it trying to be a gator mouth, don't forget you can tie a ribbon around it north-south and it will still hold your book nice and closed. So everything in this book is from repurposed sources, and where possible, if I have purchased something new, I will let you know. For example, this bulldog clip here, it looks rusty and old, but it's actually new. It's very hard for me to find tiny little bulldog clips at thrift stores. So that is new. And if I see anything else in here, I'll try and point it out to you. Otherwise, the papers have been thrifted. The pages out of old books have been repurposed. Wherever possible, I will write the date from the book down here in pencil that you can erase if you don't want it there. But I think a lot of people find that interesting when they know how old many of the things are that I've put back into the book. So it truly is a junk journal. I've done a cluster here with some lace, some more of the wallpaper. I had a little bit of leftover and I thought the new owner might like to have some fun with it, so I've just tucked it in there for now. And there was a little bit of a tear in the paper up here, so I actually used some real cellophane tape that has yellowed, and I had peeled it off something and I put it back in there. I reinforced the page with more of the 1930s wallpaper. Much of the inspiration for these little flips that you're going to see throughout the book has come from the YouTube channel Bohemian Crafting. Eva's son Jacob recently put together his first few signatures for a junk journal, and I was so inspired by what this young man did that I took some inspiration from his style and made it my own. And you'll see a lot of these little places here and there in this book where you can do little journaling spots throughout the book. A little tab here with a little moon and star charm hanging off of it. Like I said, pages of varying sizes, a little pansy here. This is from a book of, it's a reckoning book, and it's from 1916. I've made a pocket here from an old recipe card and did a little bit of collaging here and a little bit of lace hanging off the edge with a tea-dyed page from a book that was a travel diary, I believe. And this actually is someone's old recipe card. I find these boxes at thrift stores. A page out of a ledger book. To reinforce the seam, I used faux cellophane tape. So I've created that myself using cellophane tape and alcohol ink. This is a page from a gardening diary. And again, here's a little flip up inspired by Jacob. There's tons of room for your journaling in this book. In some of the places, I felt like just gluing in some pages, pieces of pages out of an old dictionary and then tearing around the edge. So I glued part of it down and then I tore it off, and that's how I achieved this ripped look here. And wherever possible, I did use a few pages out of the original text block, but they were really not very interesting, so I just took advantage and filled it with interesting pages instead. I made a pocket out of what was a Time money envelope, and it was from 1987, so it's not that old. This is an old bridge tally sheet, and then a blank check from the Canadian Bank of Commerce. Obviously from the early 1900s, because it has 19, and then it could be used, I guess, up until 1919 if they had used it in time. And I'm not sure why there's a Canada Post stamp on there, but that was already there. It was given to me in some happy mail, sort of happy gift, because it was handed to me in person. Just another little tea-dyed page out of a Beatrix Potter book that in order to make this tab, I also made it into a tuck spot. And I've, wherever possible, put some interesting edges onto pages. This is the old end papers from a previous book that I took apart. And there's some movers packing tape holding that down. So extra spaces for journaling, more ledger paper, more Jacob-inspired little journaling spots up here. Wherever you see sewing, I have knotted the ends. I've left the threads long because I like it, but you can trim it if you don't like it. So although I had a lot of fun doing my thing in this book, you can see I've left a lot of room for you in all these pages. I mean, 258 pages. This is quite a book. I haven't weighed it yet, but it's quite a hefty book. Another page out of the original text block. This is all old paper, all that yellowing around the edge. Mother Nature and Father Time did that. Page out of a shorthand book from 1937. And that just makes for a fun background for collaging on. This is a page out of a guest book that I tea-dyed. This is an old 1940s, I guess it's a receipt. Be careful when you use it because that actually is carbon paper behind there. So, and I made a tab out of a tag, and you know, if you follow along with me, you know I get a kick and a giggle out of old laxative ads out of old magazines and newspapers. So I had fun with that, and I added a little bit of string just to, again, add a little fun for the profile of the side of the book. This is a little tuck spot. Again, when I find ads that just make me giggle from out of old, this was a 1956 newspaper. I love making use of them. More blank tea-dyed paper. Lots of little spots here and there for journaling in. This really is vintage composition paper from a children's school notebook. This is out of a 1940s tourist book for Bournemouth district in England, and I just thought that map was beautiful, and it was already attached like that, so I just left it there like that. A little bit of collaging here and a little butterfly wing that you can see on both sides. This came in Happy Mail. It was a full envelope, and I used part of it to make a little tuck spot. And there's a vintage guest check there and an actual vintage, that's a naturally yellowed index card that I tucked in there. You can put these wherever you want after you've used them for whatever you want. This is a page out of a stamp collector's album. This is the other side of that tourist book, and that was actually on it too, so I just left it there. This is out of an old encyclopedia, I believe from the 1950s. I'll have to look and see if I can write down the year for you. I really like how that looked, giving a fun edge. Again, I had fun with an illustrated dictionary and gluing it down and then tearing off the paper that wasn't glued, and a little bit of collaging with some Tim Holtz stamping, and a little a little ticket here that I've made into a tab. Another of those end papers. And this is out of a Wildflowers book from 1940. And more of that vintage paper. It's out of a children's scrapbook, notebook kind of thing for drawing in. Here's a pocket that I've made. This was actually from a Tim Holtz piece of scrapbook paper that I cut this out, but I aged it and made it look like an old postcard, but it actually is from Tim Holtz scrapbook paper. And I've just tucked in some extra leftover blank paper that was from the text block, so I put that in there. And here's a little bit more of the leftovers from when I was creating the front and back end papers. That's more of that wallpaper. This is some leftover bullet journal paper that I tea dyed. And a little more inspiration from Jacob up here with these little spaces up there for journaling. I just love how that looks. And a vintage flashcard that you can use to make a tag out of. And again, some more old vintage paper that I've just tucked in behind there. So this actually is attached to make a tab, but I've left this side open so that it's also a tuck spot. Here I had fun. This was out of an old book, and I can't remember the year of it because I just saved the illustration out of the text block. But I've tucked this in. I got this in a complimentary little kit from the name is, it's slipping my mind right now. A little bit of washi tape there. The washi tape is new. I never find that at thrift stores. This envelope came from Wishes and Weeds. She makes beautiful avocado dyed papers with lace patterns on it, and it has some old vintage paper from a tiny little binder that I just tucked in there so that there's something to get you started. This brown paper is from a grocery bag. And some more old paper that I pull out of little binders and books that I find at thrift stores. And again, some more faux cellophane tape that I've created using alcohol inks. A little bit of stenciling along the edge here and a whale tail tab from Happy Mail. This page came out of the 1888 book, The Girl's Own Paper, which is the same book that I got the illustrations that are on the front. And it's on how to make a portfolio, and I thought that was rather fitting for to put in a book that has been recreated into a journal. So I've tucked that in there. This was an old appointment card that I tea dyed, and then a bridge tally. I tucked that in there too, and again another page from out of the actual text block. I've put a permanent bookmark into it. When you've got 258 pages and 11 signatures, I think a ribbon bookmark is warranted. Another little fun tab up here. It says this end up on both sides there, just in case you were wondering, I guess. Some more tea-dyed papers. Now here you'll see some polka dots. When I first tea-dyed these papers and I saw these polka dots and I thought, oh no, did the paper go moldy? And then I realized that the pan I used was an old rusty pan, because a rusty pan will leave black marks on paper. And so I kind of like the way that looks. So don't be worried. It's not mold. that is the dyeing marks that tea and rust will create onto paper, because I've done it on purpose since then. I like how it looks. More of the composition paper. This is just some typewriter torn up paper. It's in French, and it was actually in a book that I purchased just a couple days ago, and I just thought, you know what, it's going in here because it can be an interesting journaling spot, and it's in French, so I don't know what it says, but I guess somebody was taking French. Here's the little bulldog clip that I rust them and seal them, and I think they look cute. And I've used an old measuring tape instead of a ribbon up there. I really had fun just doing all sorts of things in this book, which is why I love to call these books an all sorts book. I guess you could call it a commonplace book, but I like calling them an all sorts book because I fill them with all sorts of things that there's no rhyme or reason. This is a label from an old pharmacist and drugstore from Princeton, Ontario. Let me make sure I'm still in camera here. And I am. Good. So you'll be able to put that little bulldog clip wherever you need to. More ledger paper. Mostly tea-dyed paper in here, but some of the paper I have left smooth. And I think that's why I was able to fit so many pages in. I created a double pocket here from the other part of that grocery bag and put it here, and had fun tearing and folding the edges and doing a little bit of collaging there. And then there's two sides to this pocket, so that part is a pocket, and then this part is also a pocket. And this is just a little vintage card that you can maybe write a little thank you note or love note or whatever you like. And this is a tea-dyed folio out of an old guest book. I love putting those into journals. I had a little bit of fun playing with just dropping some ink from an eyedropper. That's supposed to be Van Dyke brown, but it looks quite black to me. But I like how that looked. A vintage label from Chautauqua Made Quality Grape Juice. And there are a few little things in here. An old vintage bridge tally, and a tab from a laundry service from the 1920s. You can see here it would have been used for those 10 years because it says 19 and then 20 whatever year that happens to be. So that's the real deal. You'll see a lot of actual old ephemera in this book. A vintage little thank you card in here. I just think it's so pretty. I've left it as is. You have a lot of options when one of these cards is put in, because they used to double fold cards. So if you wanted to, you could glue these ends shut and they become pockets. Or you could take an X-Acto blade and open up the top and they become extra pages, and this becomes journaling spaces. Or I suppose you could glue one side and have a pocket and open up the other side. I left that up to you. This is a little envelope that you used to get from seamstresses and tailors that would have extra thread and buttons in it if you had them make you an outfit or a suit. And so I put this old photo on it. The photo can come out and you can actually see in behind where the person's order was. I'm just going to tuck that loosely for now and I'll put it back in later. And it sticks out like a tab, but if you turn it over, you'll see that inside here, I couldn't leave it empty, and it has 2 tea cards tucked inside, but you can tuck whatever little secrets you want in a little cute little envelope like that. And it again acts as another tab. Now there's no rhyme or reason for where I put these tabs, except I felt like it and I thought it looked neat. Another pocket from that envelope that I had fun with. I aged it to make it look much grungier than it was, even though it is from 1987. So it is that considered vintage nowadays? 87, that's certainly over 30 years old. And it's got a vintage Yahtzee scorecard in there. So hopefully everyone still knows what Yahtzee is. That's a fun game. We still play Yahtzee. And this spread has some tip outs there. And it's tea-dyed. And you'll see sewing here and there throughout. And again, another tab made out of tickets. These were from, these are Tim Holtz tickets, and I did purchase these new. It's very rare for me to find Tim Holtz things where I live in Canada, and I happened to be down in Buffalo, and when I saw those, I had to have it. So those little tickets are, I believe, from Tim Holtz. But I put a little eyelet and a little charm from a necklace that I took apart on a bulb pin. More journaling space, a vintage little price tag that I've turned into a tab. Another scorecard from a game called Word Thief. I've never heard of that game before. This is just another page from out of the original text block, but I thought that it gave lots of room for actually journaling on, and certainly also on that side. Some more sewing, just random sewing with some fun little tangles of threads that looks kind of cool. And this is also from that page from out of the stamp collecting book. I finally made use, I'd been saving this XYZ or XYZ, depending what country you're in, and I thought this is the book to use it in. There's a little sentence down here. It says, "Surely there were footsteps coming this way." And this was actually on the page where I fussy cut these 2 characters off of out of that 1888 book. So I still made use of it. I put it here and I added a little lace. And then I did a little bit of collaging here with some washi tape and a fussy cut thistle and a little label. Some more sewing. And a full-length tuck spot here. I put in a vintage postcard from out of a photo album that I found. You know those old photo albums that they used to stick right in, and you'd peel back the plastic and you'd pretty well ruin your photos because they'd stick permanently right to it. And I found a book full of these, and it was, fortunately they popped off, and I just thought that was cute. It's the old Curiosity Shop, immortalized by Charles Dickens. And then, of course, in my journals, I always put a Two Nanas bookmark. So I just tucked the Two Nanas into this little spot here. But you can put the Two Nanas wherever you like. And another little other side of that scorecard. And on this final page here, I felt like it just needed something, but I wanted to leave it for the owner to do whatever they want on this spread. It just felt like I felt like I needed to leave it alone. So I've just used a tiny little paper clip that came in with some Happy Mail and this little picture that I cut it out of a book. It's not an actual photo. It's from a book, but it looks like an old photo. And then one of my little old-fashioned sunshines that I like to use. And here is where I've signed and dated the book so that you know what year it was from, that I remade it. So that is Miscellaneous Works Volume 3, and I really love how this looks, and I think that it makes for an interesting journal. It looks like it's already chock full of miscellaneous things, and you haven't even got started filling it with your things. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this flip through. I will be posting down below and also over on Instagram the day and time that I will be listing this in my Etsy shop, which hopefully will be quite soon, but I'm not sure yet because I haven't put together the listing yet. It takes a little while to get it set up over there on Etsy. But thanks for joining me today, and I hope you enjoyed this flip through of Miscellaneous Works from 1880. Take care.